Hey guys, welcome back. Scott Matthews, Latrobe Valley, Victoria, building full-size Sopwith Camel. Let's get into the build. Alright guys, first things first. Feeling a bit, just been out for a fly. I tend to do that to myself. I've been out and I had a look around. I look at, go looking for roads into fishing spots, and I look at the ground and ultimately I end up in a downward spiral, literally. Sounds worse than it is, probably 300 feet a minute, spiralling down as I look out the window. Make myself feel a bit queasy. I think I'm a bit of a straight and level dude. Anyway, cup of coffee will fix that up. Let's get into the build. So I came in during the week. I'm back at it full time. Today's Friday, so we'll go flat out for a day and then have a weekend off. Cut out my templates, which is good. For now, that'll tuck in. This will go over. I need to nick this corner off because that'll allow the plywood to go in flush, I'm hoping, and then the top will come down. Like I've been worried about this three ways. I think I'm going to end up with a hole under here. That's fine for what it is. So that's going to sit somewhere there, and probably some brass self-tappers, believe it or not. But it's wood into wood. I've ordered in my anchor nuts. My anchor nuts have come in. So I'm going to start doing some anchor nuts, do away with the clecos. It'll just give me an idea of what's going on. The other side, I've just cut the one template for the combing because I can use that for both sides, ambidextrous. And the bolt-ons, I need to work out how I'm going to mount those. I've left a rivet out here for the downpipe clamp that I'm going to use on the front. I just have to be a bit careful that I've got a lot of weight just hanging out the front there. These are purely cosmetic, but could cause a drama if they were to come loose. I thought my potato head hole would be a lot harder than it was. Ultimately, I used the hubcaps as a little bit of a template, but it's not a circle. It's a potato. And then in the end, I just sort of free-handed it, folded it in half to get the same on the other side. But as I've said before, you won't see both sides at the same time ever. So what I might do is make up another little template. I'm just not sure how I'm going to make the supports at the top here. I'll talk you through that as I do it. Okay, so can't have too many templates. So if this is my side panel, being plywood, my top skin, actually that'll be plywood as well, won't it? Anyway, we've got a 1 inch overlap onto a tube is what I'm trying to achieve. So I can do it a couple of ways. I could use these things. Then I'll end up with 2 rows of screws, or nuts or bolts, whatever I'm going to use. Or I go back to the way I did the rest of the aircraft and use a Dell clamps or P clamps, these things, and mount an L angle to the airframe something like that, and then that will give me a flange for the anchor nuts. If I was just to do these saddle clamps, I would probably just put nuts, just reach in through the cockpit and put nuts on it But then that defeats the purpose a bit of having anchor nuts everywhere else. Now I was thinking that's how this is going to be plywood. So plywood over plywood. Could even be self-tappers. I could glue a piece of hardwood in my... I've got a piece for the camera. Yep, something along these lines. That could get glued to the inside of this piece and just screw into it. It's not a bad idea. And you'd end up with that sort of look. So this is what takes my time, guys, actually designing the aircraft. Alright, so I'm going to have veneer over the plywood side, 3mm ply side panel. The tube is the airframe, and I'll have about an inch overhang. So I could just glue hardwood to there. That would allow me to do some nice just brass screws. However, it's not attached to the tube, is it? And then I need to I've got some half ones, these guys, which are half a just conduit strap, whatever you want to call it. Is it as simple as that? That's why I'm doing the template. I'll bolt this to it and see what happens. Okay, played around with a few options like these half clips, but I think in keeping with the rest, I'm going to do very similar or exactly the same, but with less screws, because I've got to remember my shoulder will be here somewhere. So I will go with the L angle like this, P-clamped to the tube, so like that, with anchor nuts. That'll allow a couple of things. I like the look. I just marked it with pencil of a lot of little self-tappers. That'll happen from there back. But I think for this panel and the overlap, I'll keep the same pitch, same screws, and just collect that as best I can. And yeah, if the veneer pops up, I could then potentially put a self-tapper in between on final fit. We'll do that. So I've thought about that long enough. I need to get some, I think I use 40 by 20. This is 20 by 20. So that's a trip to the hardware store, the aviation aisle in Bunnings. Now, what else? I noticed for my panel here, I've got the nice Zuzz fastener on. I've got this open, let the heat out. I could do these quick sort of Zuzz fasteners. And we'll see how it turns out. We'll get to that panel later. Alright, so I think I've kept all my templates, including blocks of wood and stuff that I used on these guys down here. It's mainly to get the distance for the hole for the Adele clamp. I take the rubber off the clamp, I'll paint all this black, This will run sort of full length, say call it 12 inches. The good thing is you can rotate it as required, clamp it, and then get a nice fit. And then anchor nut, which will go through 2 layers. So the top Mr. Potato Head will just fit, will come down through the ply into an anchor nut. I just need to pay attention. This will obviously get rounded off. It's going to poke into the cockpit slightly. But that, you know, I might end up with an Adele clamp there for some other reason, airspeed or something. Right, I've made a decision now, let's make it. Okay, hot day today, back out here. All this stuff has taken a fair bit of time, but that's all right, sneaking up on it. Just spent my time, I've cut out some, right, having lots of GoPro issues this morning, takes up half my time. So I'm working on these panels and making structure to screw stuff to. So I've just cut out some L angles. If the camera freezes, I apologise. And so I've got 6 L angles there for the 3 bays. 1, 2, 3. And I just played around, you know, making jigs, tweaking the edge distance, if you like, where this is going to connect. Because the variable there, not a variable, when I bolt the Adele clamp or these clamps on, I want it flush at the edge. My little jig in this case is slightly out, so I made a new jig. To get that, when it's bolted on, it'll sit in nice and flush in there. I'll sort of clean out the middle of this, the part that's not required, and just leave some tongues for the clamps, sort of similar to that, round it off a bit. The reason I take the rubber, I'm using Adele clamps, I take the rubber out just so it doesn't sort of look like a hardware shop in the cockpit, paint them black, and they sort of disappear a bit better. So I'm making, it's going to be like 40 degrees today in the hangar, so I won't last long. There's my 6 parts, and I'm just marking out for the Adele clamps. And I've taken my not my rib spacing, but my distance, my pitch of my fasteners. So there'll be 4 on this piece. I just took it off the same pitch as what's around the rest of the plywood. So there'll be 4 in there. Consideration here also is where my top bit of veneer is going to come down. I want at least a 1-inch overlap, and I think I will get that at least. So there's a bit of thought. I don't want to just make this piece happy. You know, I've got a 1-inch piece there, 1/2-inch centre, and drill through. I just want to make sure that I've got enough edge distance and not too much, if that makes sense. I want a nice edge distance on this piece, which will run what I'm talking about, this guy, and that will basically run somewhere along there, which is about 1 inch, but just something to think about. Then I'll pull things off. I've got some notes for myself to mark things. When I pull this off, I'll trim this sheet on the other side. I don't think it's as neat as that. Doesn't really matter. The plan with parts like this, I'll just do a nice horseshoe out of sheet metal and rivet it on to cover this a lot nicer, make it more, you know, cosmetic, and yeah, we'll go from there. So just sneaking up on it. Obviously I need to do those bottom pieces as well. The cowl's basically ready to do the anchor nuts. I'll get stuck into that at some stage. And eventually I'll get to the point where this is all anchor nut and screwed on. And then guess what? Just pull it off again. Right, my little template piece there. And that just gives me the camel toe, if you like, to cut out. I'll probably have, excuse me, I'll probably leave about 1 inch, or I'll work out the thickness of the tube and cut there, just so they're all basically the same. So what will happen there, my clamp now will sit like that. And then on the ones that I've marked, there will be the holes for the anchor nuts. Checking all along, have I got enough edge distance for an anchor nut and its rivets. I know you can get 2 rivets on the left hand side for argument's sake, but that'll work there. You can even go diagonal if it works better that way. Other considerations are getting the rivet gun. Well, these will be on the outside, so there's no worries there. The rivet gun comes from this side, so there's plenty of clearance. The fuel tank, cross members, the cabane struts, take all that into consideration. I've offered these up to make sure, for instance, this isn't going to clash with the mount for the fuel tank. So there's a lot of thinking going on. Now I will work out the depth, join those two up, probably pre-drill it like in the corners to give me a radius, and then cut it out with the bandsaw. Okay, so I've just rough cut these, as you can see. Now I date with the belt sander, clean those up nicely. This is all the work that sort of takes the time. Once I get these on, I can power ahead. Just give me something to bolt it to. Probably one of my pet gripes with this kit, I use the term with the materials that are supplied as a kit. On a welded fuselage, there's no tangs. The tangs that I did have were in the wrong spot. If you remember back, I had a couple of tangs for the tailplane for this former here, and they were back here somewhere, out by about 6 inches. So I really think it could improve in that regard, having tangs. You can't have too many. Just put tangs everywhere, because I'm going to spend a good 100 hours, I reckon, by the end of this build, making brackets for, stuff to screw to, bolt to, adhere to, whatever. Which makes it hard. It's all wishy-washy. You don't know where it's going to fit. So you need to build a home for it first, and then make it fit. I did look back. I'm at about 1,500 hours. We're coming up to March 2025. That'll be 2 years. 2 years into the build in March, which is pretty good. But it's advertised at 400 to 500 hours, I think, or one of the videos. But anyway, I'm having fun. It's all about the journey. So I'll just continue on with these guys. Definitely wear the earmuffs because it's sustained. I was just cutting it on the angle, and because the metal is up off the bandsaw, it gets a good sing up. Now I'll clean those up, and then they will be ready to bolt on. These will get bolted on. Probably might pilot hole drill them, but I won't back drill until such time as I have the top veneer on. And then I think I'll back drill through the metal, through the 3mm ply into, say, let's call this 1mm ply. Otherwise, what can happen when you've got metal and wood, if this was pilot hole drilled, and so was this piece, for argument's sake, you can tend to miss. You can't feel it, and you can figure eight the wood. So I'll do it once, do it right, basically. Also, all my offcuts, these are the bits that came out of that section. If anyone's interested, that was 20 by 40 L angle, just from the hardware store. And before people ask about the weight that I'm adding, I'm adding heaps of weight. The forecast or projected weight of this is basically the same as the cruiser, and I've got an extra wing. So wing loading is not going to be an issue. So as far as weight goes, and it's forward, it's on the CG, I guess. I'm concerned I'm going to need 10 kilos of lead in the front, to be completely honest, but we'll see how that pans out in the end. So I'm just doing what I have to do at the moment. All the off-cut pieces, I just square the ends off into the bin. I've learned my lesson, you don't have sharp things, because when you pull the bag out of the bin it'll go straight through your leg. And I keep, these will be like gold one day if you ever need a little piece for a shim or something. So I've got a box down there, I keep basically every offcut I own. Alright, 38 degrees and raining, and the GoPro's decided to talk or translate in French for some reason. Anyway, I'm moving on. I've come in today, I did all these yesterday, my own trap I guess, you know, raced to try and get, what is there, 6? So I raced yesterday afternoon, or yesterday before I went home, before it got too hot, to get 6 done, and they were pretty average. I came in this morning and they looked like a 2-year-old had done them, to be honest. So now I'm going to rub the marks off because they give you a false read, to be honest. And I've hit them on the sander. Half the trouble is working out, you know, how to get things in to get a nice straight edge. Now I'll finish it with the hand file. Doesn't really matter, these will get camouflaged a little bit, but I wanted to take as much as I could, so now when the Adele clamp goes on there's no metal poking out, because that's basically where my shoulder's going to be on one particular bracket. So pretty boring stuff guys, but I'm just going through. I've pilot hole drilled these. I've gone with 100mm pitch, sort of worked well on a 12-inch piece, and that's in keeping with the rest. So for instance at the back, whichever one's the back one, these ones I think, this will go on the inside down there, and you can see my pitch. Basically I want to tuck the trailing edge in. I just do 10mm from the edge and work out the rest, divide it by 3, and get it close to, you see the pitch is very close to those ones, just so it's cosmetically nice all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, same on the other side. It's almost time. I should pull the cowl off actually and do some anchor nuts, get that on. With the machine, with the bolt on as well, I might have to just notch, that'll be okay. What I'm going to have is a similar sort of L angle. We'll poke through those teeth to collect the bolt on, and if I just, it looks like I have to notch it about a 1/4 inch for clearance, which is good because that will become a stop to stop this happening, smacking into my, I'll touch this up later, smacking into my strut hopefully, but also if I do it neat enough it'll clunk into the bolt-on mounts. So that's where we're going. Can only film what I'm doing guys, and it's sort of boring stuff. Stand by, I've got 200 odd anchor nuts to rivet up, or 100 anchor nuts, 200 rivets. Alright, got the cowl off, painted my brackets down there. I'll let those dry till tomorrow. They could go on now, but you know, let them dry. Now, doing some anchor nuts. So I've made up my little, got an anchor nut with a bolt, chopped the head off. So that becomes my template, if you like. I'm using a solid anchor nut. What I mean by that, these other ones are the center floats. The first one I did ended up a bit off because the center floats. So I've gone back to a solid for the template. And now I'm just going through, drilling them all. They'll be countersunk, clean the back up. A few more to do. And then I'll just pop rivet the anchor nuts on I could get a squeezer and squeeze them all on, but I find the pop rivets easier to remove, to be honest. I'll probably have to run a tap through the anchor nut, like 3/4 of the way through, just to they're just a little bit tight, because these will be Phillips head, and if you ever had experience with Phillips heads, you can chew the head of the screw out, so you want them to be snug, but not. The other thing too, you don't want to slip and sign your name across the cowl. So just going with the anchor nuts, you can see I've got one cleat on there, which is good, which allows me to rivet it. The trick when riveting is double check the back, because the anchor nut could quite easily miss. We'll get the anchor nuts on and hopefully bolt the cowl back on. So just a superstition of mine, I've gone through up to here, I've left that one and this one back down the bottom. I always leave an easy accessible one to last, because I don't know how many times building both aircraft the last screw has stripped or busted or mucked up, or the rivet stem breaks off, or you break a drill bit or something like that. So my superstition is I always leave the easy accessible one to last. Just what I do. Got my number one fan watching on. Got the anchor nuts in. I use pop rivets, countersunk pop rivets. They're a little bit long, but I had a box of 1,000 or 500 or something, so I used what I had. And then I just used this, I don't know why, but well, because I had it there, this anti-chafe or anti-static tape. It's like Teflon tape, really thin. And I just put it on this edge here, and I'm just cutting out the holes. I'm about to run a 1032 tap through each anchor nut. And what I'll do is I'll find a screw like this here and screw it all the way in, just so I know it's not going to give me any grief. And then I'll not final fit, I'll put the cowl on and consider that firewall section done. I've just got to tape up this top section of anchor nuts. Yeah, turning out nice, happy with that. About half hour's work, I guess, to do all those. The jig really helped. Let's get it on. Okay, all anchor nuts are in, screwed in by hand initially. Then I put the battery drill on one. I don't like using the battery drill, but in this case I did, and it torques them up nice to all the same tension, if you like. I've got a little bit of trimming now that I've pulled this in nicely. Tiny bit of trimming up to the tape on this panel. When this comes off, that'll be one of the next panels to do. Having that tight now has really made it solid. I can see inside, I'm in safe, I'm not thread bound. And for future self, I've used these ones, a -8. Little washer head screws, and they're a -8 for when I go looking in the future. Beauty. Might call that a day, because I've got more anchor nuts to do. It'd be nice to get all that on and flush, but then you know the drill, I've got to pull it all off. Still got to nibble the front of this, work out. I'll get these guys down here close, but I don't know where exactly my flying wire. Yeah, that's a guess. I just put it on like a 45 and make room. I have to build something for under here. I need to grab a bit of wing strut material and make sure I can get my wing on in there, so I'll make that big enough. Same at the back, so when the day comes there won't be too much mucking around. So I'm on a bit of a roll now. I've got a system. I've painted up these brackets. They could potentially go on now, but I'll do that tomorrow. They'll bolt inside. I'm going to wait until I get this top piece of plywood, so I'll have the pilot holes on the inside. Then I think I'll do this bit of plywood, come down block it on, do whatever I have to do, and then back drill through both, and yeah, put it on. This piece here, imagine this is 1mm ply. I'm not sure if I need some glue underneath. If I do glue it underneath, it's never going to come off. However, if it was to split or get wet, or, you know, do something in the weather, or I crack it, so I think I'll put it on dry with self-tappers, little brass screws all the way around, up over the top. I've made it so I can't miss necessarily. I've got a 1-inch block sitting on top of the longeron, 1 inch by 1/4 inch I think it is. It's in there ready for the screws. Yeah, just little brass screws, and then this front piece will get taken up. Then what I'll do with this, I've got a 1 inch overhang. I'll run another piece of either 3mm or thinner, whatever I think, and glue it on the inside, and then we'll do the nice leather seat cushion, Mr. Potato Head headband around here. Looking good, going well. I'm just sort of using, end up buying so many, I've got tackle boxes on top of tackle boxes full of nuts and bolts. And there's my AN4 bolt collection. There's enough there for a 747. And then sure enough, the bolts you need aren't quite right. So I'm sort of scrounging at the moment. I've got my clamps here. I think I'm one short. That includes some bigger ones with the rubber. These ones I'll hide up the front just because they look out of place to me in the cockpit. These will go up near the fuel tank, purely because that's what I've got. I've been to the Super Cheap Auto and those sort of places. Can't find any 14mm ones, which are what these bands are. So these will go in the cockpit, sprayed black, basically not noticeable, onto those frames that I've sprayed. I've got some AN bolts ready to go. A couple of them are longer, so they've got the one washer. Once again, using what I have. Sure, I can walk down and buy some more bolts, but you've got to sort of stop somewhere for the sake of one washer, and these will be up the front anyway. So that's the hardware there, ready to go. My pieces here all worked really well. I sort of test everything. You can see my anchor nut there. It's all been tested. You see how the rivets are a little bit long, but they do the job. Because I've got, well, I thought it was 100, there's 1,000. I've got 1,000 of these guys. So use what I've got. All right guys, so from a hot hangar, it's 36 degrees in the hangar. Going to knock off there. I'll whack out a video, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.